Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
The government wanting to tap citizens' WhatsApp messages would tantamount to creating a surveillance state. Those scathing remarks come from the Supreme Court today as it took a strong note of the Information and Broadcasting Ministry's plan to set up a social media communication hub in every district of the country. The Apex Court was hearing a plea filed by the Trinamool Congress MLA Mahua Moitra against the government's proposed move to monitor social media movements. Remember, recently, the Broadcast Engineering Consultants India Limited, which is a public sector undertaking under the Information and Broadcasting Ministry, had floated a tender to supply software for the project. The bid document, among other things, highlights that there was a need to create a social media analytical tool which will create digital profiles of citizens, ostensibly to gauge their opinions about official policies. Well, to take this discussion forward, we're now joined by Trinamool Congress MLA Mahua Moitra, who filed a petition against the government's proposal, and we've also got with us spokespersons of the BJP as well as the Congress Party. Mahua and gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the show. Mahua, let me start by asking you, why did you feel the need to file this petition? What is your angst about?
I think I filed this petition in my personal capacity, and I think my angst is that of any concerned private citizen of a democratic country like India, where the government, and with the help of the Information and Broadcasting Ministry, has put out an RFP seeking bids for basically creating a social media hub, which is going to do two things. The first is it's going to create a surveillance mechanism, and we're very clear on this. You've read the RFP, you know, we've quoted from this all day, but it says that it's going to look at all social media chatter, it's going to collate data, it's going to listen in, and it is going to disseminate content, and it's also going to crawl social media and the World Wide Web for data mining. It's going to monitor individual social media users. That's the one part of it, which is the social media part, the surveillance part. The second part of it is basically that it's giving the government carte blanche to use it as a propaganda tool. So again, I'm just quoting from the RFP. This is not something I've made up. It says that the purpose set out in the RFP, there's a part titled Predictive Analysis. How can public perception be molded? How can nationalistic feelings be inculcated in the masses? So I think this is absolutely frightening, and it's diabolical. I think it's a diabolical plan, and as any concerned citizen, because social media is not just for a few tech-savvy people anymore. I mean, my mother uses it. Almost everybody is either on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, and this is your personal space. In light of the Puttaswamy judgment, and in light of the Data Protection Act, data protection set up in India, still in limbo with the Sri Krishna Committee report not yet coming out, I think we've got a situation where we have privacy as a fundamental right, and on the other side we don't have a very strong data protection mechanism in place. So this is basically ammunition in the hands of the government to go out and do anything. So this was my primary concern, which is why I filed the writ.
Okay, you filed this in your personal capacity. Mahua, though, also is a member of the Trinamool Congress.
Correct.
We're now also joined by Congress spokesperson Mohammed Khan. Mohammed, thanks very much for joining us. What is the position that the Congress intends to take as far as these social media hubs are concerned? Is the Congress also planning to intervene in this matter in the court?
As of now, there is no immediate plan to become a party. As Mahua ji will tell you, the rules for becoming an intervener in public interest litigations are very, very thorough. You have to demonstrate that you have no personal interest in the matter, that you do not stand to gain as a political party from the matter. That is why the Supreme Court and others discourage political parties from filing PILs. That's why Mahua ji has very rightly told you she has approached this in a personal capacity, because this is an issue that affects all of us. Now, insofar as the issue is concerned, Shireen ji, you will recall barely a year ago, this is the very same government that stood in court, looked us all brazenly in the eye, and argued at great length to deny us a right to privacy. They filed affidavit upon affidavit, labeling it an elite concern, arguing for their rights to police us and carry out what they called a survey, a survey of our activities, digital as well as otherwise. They didn't limit it. And when they were resoundingly defeated over there, when the right to privacy emerged as a fundamental right, this is a step to try and circumvent that step. We opposed it then to tooth and nail. We will oppose it now, Shireen ji. That is our position, because this is not only a violation of fundamental right, it is also a violation of the scheme that our constitution provides us. I think this is, par for the course for the BJP. What do you expect, Shireen ji? We've seen them over the last 4 years.
Okay, so this is going to be all right. Okay, let me go across now to the BJP spokesperson, Vaibhav Agarwal. Vaibhav, we've just heard from Mahua Moitra, the petitioner in this matter, as well as Mohammad Khan of the Congress Party. Mahua basically saying that this is the BJP's way of creating a surveillance state, and secondly, also using this tool as propaganda. And Mohammad Khan there of the Congress Party saying that this is vintage BJP. You tried to deny citizens of this country their right to privacy. The court ruled against that. And this is the BJP's attempt at once again enabling the government to take control over a citizen's life.
Shireen, if this was a Friday evening night golf, I would have really enjoyed on listening to the jibe that Mohammad Bhai is taking on the BJP, saying that it is a rhetoric and this is classic BJP act when we denied privacy. But in fact, we are all for transparency, and Mohammad Bhai knows it in his heart. And I will not ask him to spill the beans, of course, but BJP as a party for the first time brought in attendance for government officers, for example. What other privacy? And it's you can actually go on a website and see who's coming, who's not coming,
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. I don't want to get into the conversation between you and Mohammed that you can have offline. I'm asking you specifically to talk about this particular matter. The Supreme Court has made a very serious observation today, saying that in its attempt to create the social media hub, the government is creating a surveillance state. The government has been given 2 weeks now to respond to the Supreme Court. This is a serious matter. Let's just take a look at the bid document, the RFP that has been floated. It's another matter that you haven't got any bidders so far, and that process hasn't taken off. But why is it that the government wants to have the ability to crawl social media for data mining? Why is it that the government wants to be able to listen in to digital chatter? Why is it that the government wants to monitor individual social media user and account? Why should the government want to mold public perception in a positive manner? Why should the government want to inculcate nationalistic feelings in the masses? Why should it want to give social media news and discussions a positive slant for India? Why should this be the government's business?
Sure. So is that the end of the list of the questions, or do you have more questions and I can then take them all together and answer? Because my answer is going to be very short.
You can start by answering this. Go ahead.
Okay. Now, see, we all understand that the RFP is a bit complicated. It's 66 pages worth of a document where, most of the highlights come on where you're questioning is email snooping and all that. All those things that are coming in. But let me say this with all honesty, page number 46 just tries to ask you for services which is just in a total length of it. It is not something that we are implemented. It is not something that the committee or the ministry has reviewed. It is only an RFP. It is just a request for proposal. There are technologies available offhand right now. 1 minute. Look, if you have me on your program, you'll have to give me sufficient time to rebut.
1 minute. 1 minute. I mean, no, I will allow you. I'll give you ample time to rebut. But let's put things in the factual light, please. You have put out an RFP. This is a government RFP. This is a tender process. You cannot then suggest that what the government has put down in black and white in scope of work as part of a tender document is not something that's been reviewed by the Information and Broadcasting Ministry. That's a lie.
Thank you.
I never said that. I'm saying it is not yet implemented. It's just an RFP. It's just an RFP.
Yes, but
it's a request for proposal. Why is there a state of paranoia in most people? Even the Supreme Court. 1 minute. No, 1 minute. Your privacy is close to your heart as much as my privacy is close to my heart, and so is everyone else's. So let's not jump the gun and allow me to give you a sufficient rebut, and be patient with me. Otherwise, I will not be able to give you a rebut. Now, the idea is that the Supreme Court came back and said in their privacy hearing, and Mohammed and I have discussed this very extensively. We have our views, but the Supreme Court sticking to not non-political views on this. The Supreme Court has its own observation saying that yes, right to privacy under Article 21, 19 are there in 18, but it's subject to reasonable limits. So, okay, so there is a reasonable limit to the privacy. Now, coming back, so let's not bring in that part of it here. As far as the observation into this matter goes, the observation, it is not an order, it is just a notice to the state. If there is an RFP that is sitting with the state right now, which has been floated, whether it's duly considered before floating it or not is something that is out of my purview and jurisdiction. I am not part of the INB, so I won't know what was the process of consultation on this paper. But for me, it's a paper floated by a PSU, not even by the ministry directly, because ministry also has direct RFPs on their own portals. So this is BECIL's, the PSU's RFP. Under what conditions have they floated is something that I also need to understand. And I'm saying that with all honesty. I'm not trying to hide behind my little finger.
Okay.
You know, so give me that. So
all right.
the idea here is, it is an
Fine.
observation where we are trying to do a surveillance state. The AG will respond on behalf of the ministry, and we should wait before we come into a state of paranoia and not thump our chests for victory, saying Supreme Court has made something and, you know, it's very serious.
Okay.
Hey, Supreme Court has said something.
Okay.
We all acknowledge it. Let's wait for a reply on that. I hope I'm not
we are waiting for the
unreasonable in what
government
I'm
to
saying.
respond. No, you're not. The government will get 2 weeks to respond to the Supreme Court.
August
But let me
3rd.
go back across to Mahua Moitra. Yes, let me go back across to Mahua. Mahua, you just heard what Vaibhav Agarwal of the BJP has had to say, that stop with the paranoia.
I think it's, I mean, you know, I've been with him on a program earlier this afternoon where he asked me first that apparently I didn't know what an RFP stood for. He also said that an RFP was not part of a tender process. He seems to think it's part of public consultation, and now he says that it has not been floated by the INB ministry. It's by Basil, which is apparently not part of the INB ministry. So I think I'll let your viewers judge these comments for what they are. The most important thing is, Shireen, let's take this to what is a very serious discussion.
You guys at TMC have a habit
please
of
let me finish,
saying too much.
Shireen, let me finish. Shireen,
Vaibhav.
I will ask you to please keep this
discussion.
discussion in line. I'm not
please
going to
go
sit
ahead.
here and
Please
be
go
interrupted
ahead.
by people from another party. It's not on.
Go ahead.
Okay?
Go ahead,
okay.
Mahua.
I think what the point is today is, what do we have today? We have the government of India. The Information and Broadcasting Ministry is the government of India. It is not outside the government of India. You have the government of India starting a tender process and floating a bid document, inviting bids. And they were due on the 18th of June. Now they're due on the 20th of August, asking for technology service providers to come in to help create a social media platform that will on one hand create a surveillance mechanism, on the other hand create a propaganda tool in the hands of this government. Now, when it has come out, this is not something that the RAW is doing surreptitiously via the back door. This is something that the government of India brazenly has put out as a public document. So do you mean to tell me this is exactly what they did with the cattle rules? Do you remember the cattle rules were put out by the Ministry of the Environment? So we are living in a world where every private citizen has to be vigilant and completely aware of their rights and their liberties. And this is exactly what we have to be wary about, not only in this country, all over the world. And when something like this is put out brazenly by the government of India, do you mean to tell me that we as concerned citizens of this country are not going to seek recourse? This is not paranoia, this is right thinking. And I'm amazed that somebody would use an adjective like that in a system like that. And I'm very thankful for the apex court. If it was indeed paranoia, the court would have thrown it out. The court gave it the due respect and the due importance. And we had very senior judges, including the Chief Justice, come out and say that if they're going to look at WhatsApp and text messages, then we're going to turn into a surveillance state. These are not my words. These are the words of the bench. Yeah. So in light of that, yes, this is only day one. We are not claiming victory by any stretch of the imagination. This is day one. We have issued notice. The hearing is on the 3rd of August. The centre will come back. We will come back, and we hope that we will reach what will be a logical conclusion in this fight, Shireen. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, Weber, let me come back to you now. And you know, the court will, of course, take this matter to its logical conclusion. But the question that I want to ask you is, and this we've seen happen even during the course of the Aadhaar hearings, the government has set up a committee headed by Justice Sri Krishna. The Sri Krishna committee report was expected at the end of the month. We don't know whether it will come through by the end of the month or not. And that is to basically put in place a legislation for data privacy and data protection. Now, in light of the fact that we do not have that mechanism in place today, why is it that the government chooses to press ahead with something like this?
No, but this, you know, Shireen, the idea here is that Aadhaar is dealt by a different ministry altogether, and this is being dealt by and under a different ministry altogether. BECIL is a PSU, a public sector unit, which is under one of the ministries in the centre government.
I understand what it is. My question is very different. My question is very different. My question is not to do with Aadhaar. My question is to do with the fact that we do not currently, no, one second, we do not currently have a data protection or a data privacy legislation. That is what has been given to the Sri Krishna committee to put forward. We are still awaiting the recommendations of the Sri Krishna committee. And hence my question to you, before we put that legislation in place, before we put the checks and balances in place, why is the government pressing ahead with this?
Sure. Well, there are some things which are in play automatically. If you see, BECIL has been trying to do something with creating a social media hub since the 2015. This is not new. So 2015 there was something that came in, 2016 there was something that came in, and then finally this 2017 document came in. So, and then 2018 document came in. So you know, so this was in the making for a very long time, and perhaps this was just this was just on the movement of the files or how the government system works, which you know, I and you won't have control on. But what we can say is, as far as my understanding of the entire issue is, before the judgment comes in or before the hearing happens on August 3rd, is that, you know, why I call this a state of paranoia is because
just one second, sir. Just one second, sir. Let's move away from being a state of paranoia, etc. Let me ask you this question as a common citizen, as a layperson, without the legalese. Forget that this is an RFP, forget the tender bidding process. You and I have no control over it. I'm asking you simply, sir, do you agree with the fact that the government should have the control to listen to your digital chatter? Do you believe that the government should have control of monitoring what you and me are doing on our social media accounts? Do you believe that the government should have the ability to look into our WhatsApps and our emails? I'm asking you this question simply, sir, as a citizen. Forget the RFP.
I absolutely respect to what you're saying, and I will reply to you back. The government as well as the citizen, no, the government should not have the control on it. However, with reasonable restrictions, if the judiciary or the legal action demands for it, then yes, the government should have the right to access it for the larger good of the nation and the people. Now, I as a citizen would definitely want guidelines to be floated by the government and be told to me, you know, explicitly as to if they are accessing my information, under what pretext and to what an extent are they accessing my information, and what is the purpose and the intent of that access. Absolutely to be put in the public discourse, and it doesn't matter. Yes, I'm a citizen first, my party comes second, and myself comes third. So as a citizen, I say my country should not be a surveillance state. India has always upheld the independence and right to freedom of expression, and you know, my colleague from Congress knows about it. Then I can get apolitical on this. No, the government should not have access to it, but with reasonable restrictions. If that is with what we can see it with maturity, of course, something like this will only be used beneficially as long as there are guidelines when the project gets implemented. And I think, and I'm very blatant in what I'm saying.
All right, I'll give wrap-up comments. Mohammed, I'll start by asking you,
checks and balances
with reasonable restrictions, the checks and balances should be in place. What the court decides to do, we still have to wait for that. Quick wrap-up comment from you.
Yes, I was listening closely to both Mahua ji and Weber bhai. I would say this, let me preface what I'm about to say with this. I know Vaibhav Bhai, he's personally a deeply progressive individual who belongs to a party with fascist tendencies, and I do not envy him that he has to defend this position. Do you know, one of the things that escaped debate during this conversation is that in May of 2017, and ET now also reported it, the government of India, specifically the Income Tax Department, Shireenji, launched Project Insight. Do you know what Project Insight was? It was a project where the government could access your Instagram, your Facebook, your Twitter, and they could take pictures of your watch, your fancy vacations, the clothes you buy, and match that up with your income. I have found nothing to be a more egregious, transgression into our privacy. I find that to be extremely vulgar of them to take a step like that. Unfortunately, it didn't make a lot of news back then. Somehow it died out because it was only Income Tax Department. It didn't affect everybody but the very rich. But that itself was the first creeping instance of practice. Now they want to go the extra mile. I think this is, of course, fascism at its purest, and we will all fight it together. And with channels such as yours, we will remain eternally vigilant, which is the price of liberty, as someone once said.
Okay, Mahua, I'll give you the final comment. Next hearing in this matter is scheduled for when?
It's for August 3rd. The 3rd of August.
August 3rd. And what would your hope be, Mahua? And what would your hope be?
Obviously, look, today the points that you brought up, in light of the Puttaswamy judgment on privacy and in light of the Shri Krishna Committee report not yet been published, we've got a situation where we've got privacy as a fundamental right, and at the same time we haven't got a strong data protection mechanism in place. So with that kind of circumstance, under those circumstances, this in the hands of this government is absolute cannon fodder. It's really strong ammunition to go after just about anybody. So what we would hope, and given the way we started today, we would hope that with the help of the Supreme Court, that common citizens this doesn't go on, that the government stops this and realizes that even if the opposition and its ordinary citizens have nothing, they have recourse to the law of the land. So we hope that we will stop this, because where the BJP seems to be taking this is the third show I'm on today, and it's almost amusing. One can do nothing but sit back and laugh when you watch these spokespersons go around in circles trying to defend something which is indefensible, and they've been told, try and take the debate away from the main point, try and take it away. So they're all trying to do that. But if you get right down to it, this is about a surveillance state. Read the RFP. It's a 66-page document which is out there. Read it, and it will tell you exactly what it is, and it's something very frightening. Well, I've read it, you've read it, and we both think it's something to be scared about. Whoever would read it would find it something to be scared about. The court agrees with us as of today, and we hope that we will win this. But let's see. The thing is still out.
All right, Mahua Moitra, Vaibhav Agarwal and Mohammed Khan, appreciate you joining us here on the Political Exchange. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this CNBC TV18 special. Thanks for watching. Don't go anywhere. A lot more is coming up.